Ceann, I wish to announce for the information of the House that I am advising the President to accept the resignation of Deputy Francis Fitzgerald as Member of the Government, and I have accepted the Minister's resignation with regret. Following this, I have nominated myself to serve as Minister for the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation for a temporary period in addition to my existing duties. This is pursuant to Section 4.1 of the Ministers and Secretaries Amendment Act 1946. Ceann, this morning Frances Fitzgerald came to me to offer her resignation as Tánaiste Minister for Business, Enterprise and Innovation. She was doing so to avoid an unnecessary and early general election that could have left the country without a functioning government and Oireachtas for several months at a crucial time for Ireland. Over the next few months, the government will need to focus on the Brexit negotiations, both Phase 1 and Phase 2. We have a finance bill and appropriations bill to enact, legislation to pass for public sector pay restoration and pension and social welfare increases. We also have the important work of the Committee on the 8th Amendment to complete, paving the way for a referendum next year. All of these would fall in the event of a general election. The work of the Government and Parliament must not be interrupted during this important period, so it is with deep regret that I have accepted her resignation. It is my strong view that a good woman is leaving office without getting a full and fair hearing. Frances has been an exemplary member of government and a loyal colleague. She established the Department of Children in Tusla, changed the Constitution twice to enshrine in it children's rights and the right to marriage equality. She was one of the most reforming Ministers of Justice we've ever had, setting up an independent policing authority chaired by Josephine Feely, the Legal Services Regulatory Authority, and bringing in a raft of reforming legislation, including the Sexual Offences Act. She always supported whistleblowers and enshrined a code of ethics in An Garda Síochána to protect them. In the past few days, a drip of information may have made certain things seem greater than they are. There was a feeding frenzy, and it became impossible for her to get a fair hearing based on the full facts. I hope that will change in the period ahead. While all of the facts still remain unclear, there are a few things that we do know. Frances had no hand, act or part in the Commissioner's legal strategy, did not devise it or guide it in any way. She was advised by her own officials on several occasions that she had no function in the matter. The Attorney-General has since confirmed this advice and further advised that she would have been acting improperly and inappropriately if she sought to interfere with the work of the O'Higgins Commission. We know from the emails that Frances had no knowledge of the approach that was being taken until the Commission's inquiries and hearings were already underway, and that her knowledge of the detail was limited. I believe a calm, measured reading of evidence will show that the Tánaiste acted appropriately, and I hope the Charlton Tribunal will establish this conclusively in the weeks ahead, and that she will have her good name vindicated. And I expect her to continue to play a full role in political and public life, including at the highest level into the future. Throughout her career, the Tánaiste has been a champion of women's rights and equal rights, and she's been a pioneer when it comes to supporting children and fighting against all forms of inequality and injustice. The events of the past few days have exposed major problems once again within a dysfunctional Department of Justice, including the way important emails were not found and therefore not sent on to the Charlton Tribunal during discovery. I'm therefore directing that there will be an external inquiry into that to report before Christmas. Systemic problems within the department were identified in the Toland report, and Minister Fitzgerald began the process of implementing the report, and this has continued under her successor, Charlie Flanagan. These reforms will now be accelerated, and the Government is planning radical action to restore public confidence in the Department of Justice. An independent change and implementation group will be established to assess progress in implementing the recommendations of the Toland report, review the culture of the department, make recommendations for change, particularly in the light of evidence of a continued siloed and secretive culture and a failure to provide accurate information to me and the Oireachtas. Examine in particular the relationship between the department and the Gardaí to ensure that the relationship is appropriately structured, is understood in both organisations and operates in such a way as to ensure accountability and better performance, and draw on the expertise of the policing authority in conducting its work. The Government will in the coming days provide further details on this. The Minister and Secretary-General of the Department for Justice and Equality will ensure that all future parliamentary questions are replied to as fully and openly as possible, subject to Dáil's standing orders in the law. All recent parliamentary questions asked by any deputy relating to Maurice McCabe will be reviewed, and it will be ensured that they have been answered as fully and openly as is possible. Any additional relevant information will be provided to deputies as quickly as possible. These events have reminded us of some of the ways in which Maurice McCabe was undermined when he shone a light into some very dark places. As Taoiseach, I'm determined to shine the brightest of lights into the darkest of places, so that we arrive at the truth and have true accountability. I continue to believe that the Tánaiste acted throughout in a way that was appropriate, but these are matters that will now be investigated and adjudicated on by a tribunal. In the meantime, the Government will continue to work for the good of the country. We will focus on the challenge of Brexit and deal with the many other problems we are facing. We will not be distracted as we strive to do what is in the best interests of all the people. Thank you.